The Krillian dreadnought appeared in Earth's orbit without warning. It was massive, stretching 3 miles from bow to stern, its dark metal hull covered in weapons that could level entire cities. Inside the lunar command station, alarms screamed as sensors picked up the enormous vessel hanging above humanity's homeworld like a sword ready to drop. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center, watching the main screen with his arms crossed. He was 52 years old with gray hair at his temples and a calm expression that never seemed to change, even now. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, fingers flying across keyboards as they tried to understand what they were seeing. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called out from her station. She was young, only 28, with dark eyes that were usually sharp and focused. Right now, those eyes looked worried. "It's coming from the alien ship. Broadcasting on all frequencies, every language we have." "Put it through," Jake said quietly. The main screen changed. The view of the threatening ship was replaced by a figure that made several people in the command center gasp. The alien was tall, maybe 8 feet, with gray skin that looked like stone. Its eyes were black and cold, without any warmth or emotion. It wore armor that seemed to be made of the same dark metal as its ship. When it spoke, the words came out in perfect English, though the voice had a strange quality that made it clear this was a translation system at work. "Primitive species of Earth," the alien began, and there was such confidence in those words that it felt like a slap. "I am Commander Zekthor of the Krillian Empire. For 1,000 years our empire has brought order to 73 star systems. We have conquered worlds that were stronger than yours. We have destroyed civilizations that refuse to accept the peace we offer." Jake noticed Captain Ben Harris walking into the command center. Ben was in charge of Earth's Experimental Weapons Division, a department that most people didn't even know existed. He was 45, built like someone who spent more time in the gym than behind a desk, and right now he was watching the screen with an expression Jake couldn't quite read. "You have 72 hours to make your choice," Zekthor continued. "Surrender your weapons. Accept our rule. Join the Empire as servants. If you do this, you will be allowed to live. Your cities will stand. Your people will continue to exist under our protection." The alien paused, and those black eyes seemed to stare through the screen at every person watching. "If you refuse, we will demonstrate our power. Your largest city will be destroyed as an example. After that, you will have 24 more hours to reconsider. If you still refuse, we will eliminate your species entirely and claim this world for the Empire." The transmission ended. The screen went back to showing the Krillian ship hanging in space above them. For a long moment, nobody in the command center spoke. Then someone's phone buzzed. Then another. Within seconds, dozens of devices were making noise as the transmission spread across Earth's communication networks. Everyone on the planet had just received the same message. "Well," Ben Harris said, breaking the silence. "That was dramatic." Jake turned to look at his old friend. "You don't seem worried." "Oh, I'm worried," Ben replied. "I'm just not scared. There's a difference." He walked over to stand beside Jake, looking up at the screen. "We knew this day would come eventually. First contact with an aggressive species. We've been preparing for it." "Have we been preparing for this specifically?" Amy Rodriguez asked, leaving her station to join them. "They're offering us slavery or death." "Those aren't great options." "They're not offering anything," Jake said. "They're delivering an ultimatum they expect us to accept." He pulled out his communication device. "Get me Secretary Karen Wells at the Pentagon, and someone contact Dr. Lisa Chang. I want her analysis of this species as soon as possible." The next 2 hours were chaos. Jake watched as Earth's government scrambled to respond. Some leaders called for immediate surrender. Others demanded a military response. A few seemed to be in complete denial that this was even happening. The news networks were going crazy, showing the alien ship from every angle, interviewing experts who didn't know anything more than anyone else. But something else was happening too, something Jake hadn't expected. "Sir," Amy said, looking at her personal device with a confused expression. "You need to see this." She transferred her screen to one of the smaller monitors. It showed social media feeds from around the world, and people were laughing. Not everyone, of course. Plenty of people were terrified. But a surprising number of humans were treating the alien threat like a joke. Memes were spreading faster than the news could keep up with. Someone had already edited the alien commander's face onto a popular movie villain. Another person had created a song using Zekthor's words. A famous comedian had posted a video mocking the 72-hour deadline. "They just threatened to destroy us," Amy said quietly, "and people are making jokes." "Humans are weird," Ben said, but he was smiling. "We make jokes when we're scared. It's how we deal with things." Dr. Lisa Chang arrived at the command center 3 hours after the transmission. She was 39 years old, a xenobiologist who had spent her entire career studying the possibility of alien life. Now that aliens were actually here, she looked both excited and terrified. "I've analyzed everything we have on the Krillians," she said, pulling up data on the screens. "It's not much, but we've been monitoring their empire for the past 6 years since we detected their long-range communications." 6 years? Jake asked. "Why wasn't I informed?" "You were," Lisa replied. "But they were so far away it wasn't considered an immediate threat. Until now." She brought up images of other alien species, all of them conquered by the Krillians. Their pattern is always the same. They arrive. They deliver the ultimatum. The target species either surrenders immediately or fights back. If they fight, the Krillians destroy one major population center, and then the species surrenders anyway. "Has anyone ever beaten them?" Ben asked. "No," Lisa said simply. "But here's what I find interesting. Every species they've conquered was afraid of them. They all responded exactly as expected. Fear, panic, desperate military resistance followed by quick surrender." "And you think that matters?" Jake asked. "I think it matters a lot," Lisa replied. "The Krillians have built their entire strategy around psychological warfare. They use fear as a weapon. When your enemy is terrified, they make mistakes. They surrender before they need to. They give up hope," Amy was nodding slowly. "But humans aren't responding with fear. At least not all of us." "Exactly," Lisa said. "Some humans are scared, yes. But others are angry. And a lot of them are just confused or treating this like entertainment. That's not a response the Krillians have seen before." Jake felt something shifting in his mind. An idea forming. If fear is their primary weapon, what happens when that weapon doesn't work? "I don't know," Lisa admitted. "It's never failed before." "Then maybe it's time we found out," Jake said. He turned to Ben. "Your experimental division. How ready are you?" Ben's smile grew wider. "We can be ready in 48 hours. But sir, you should know that most of what we've developed isn't traditional military hardware." "I don't want traditional," Jake replied. "Traditional is what they expect. Traditional is how the other 73 species lost." He looked around at his team. "We have 72 hours before they expect an answer. Let's use that time to teach them something about humanity." Secretary Karen Wells arrived that evening, a serious woman in her 60s who had seen 3 wars during her career. She listened to Jake's preliminary ideas and then asked the question he'd been waiting for. "Are you actually proposing that we don't surrender and we don't fight? What's the third option?" "We show them that humans don't follow their rules," Jake said. "We respond in a way they can't predict or understand. We use our greatest advantage," "Which is?" Karen asked. Jake looked at the monitor showing social media feeds, where millions of humans were still making jokes about the alien invaders despite the threat hanging over their heads. "We're unpredictable," he said. "We're creative, and we don't break the way they expect us to break." Commander Pete Jackson walked into the room at that moment. He was 42, head of special operations, and he'd been listening from the doorway. "You want us to get weird with them, don't you?" Jake nodded. "I want us to be so completely authentically human that they have no idea how to respond." "I love it," Pete said. "When do we start?" 24 hours had passed since the Krillian ultimatum. Jake Morrison hadn't slept. He stood in a secure conference room deep inside the Lunar Command Station, surrounded by the people who would help decide humanity's response to the greatest threat their species had ever faced. Dr. Lisa Chang was presenting her findings to the group. On the screens behind her, data scrolled past showing everything humanity had learned about the Krillian Empire in the past day. It wasn't much, but it was enough to see a pattern. "They always do the same thing," Lisa explained, pointing at a timeline. "They arrive, they threaten, and they wait. The waiting is important. It gives the target species time to panic, to tear themselves apart with fear and disagreement. By the time the deadline arrives, most civilizations are already broken." Captain Ben Harris leaned forward in his chair. "But we're not panicking, at least not the way they expect." "Some people are," Secretary Karen Wells said from her seat at the table. "I've been on calls with world leaders all day. Half of them want to surrender immediately. They think fighting is suicide. What do the other half want? Commander Pete Jackson asked. They want to fight, Karen replied. Traditional military response. Launch everything we have at that ship and hope something works. Jake shook his head. That's exactly what the Krillians expect. They've faced military resistance before. They know how to handle it. He stood up and walked to the window that looked out at Earth hanging in the black sky. We need to do something they've never seen. Amy Rodriguez had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. Sir, I've been monitoring global communications. Something interesting is happening. She pulled up her data on the main screen. It showed statistics from social media, news networks, and public communications around the world. The fear response is decreasing. 24 hours ago, when the transmission first came through, panic was high. But now, people are getting angry. They're making plans. And they're still making jokes. Jokes don't stop weapons, Karen said quietly. No, Lisa agreed. But jokes show a mental state. The Krillians use fear because fear makes people predictable. But humor is the opposite of fear. Humor means you're not broken yet. Pete Jackson was grinning now. So what you're saying is that by making memes about the aliens, millions of humans are accidentally running psychological warfare against them. I'm saying that the Krillians don't understand humanity, Lisa replied. Every species they've conquered responded with either immediate surrender or desperate military action. We're doing neither. We're in a third category they don't have in their programming. Ben Harris stood up and started pacing. My team has been working on something for the past 15 years. We called it Project Chaos. The idea was simple. What if we built weapons that weren't designed to destroy, but to confuse? Explain, Jake said. Traditional warfare is about applying force, Ben continued. You want to break things and destroy your enemy's ability to fight. But what if your enemy's greatest weakness isn't their ships or weapons? What if it's their rigid thinking? He pulled up schematics on the screen. They showed modified industrial equipment, communication devices that looked nothing like military hardware, and systems that Jake couldn't even identify. This is a frequency disruptor, Ben explained, pointing at one design. It doesn't damage anything. It just broadcasts specific sound waves that our research suggests would interfere with Krillian neural implants. They use those implants for communication and coordination. If we scramble them, their fleet can't work together efficiently. Will it hurt them? Karen asked. Probably gives them a headache, Ben said with a shrug. But we're not trying to hurt them. We're trying to confuse them. What else do you have? Jake asked. Ben's smile grew wider. A lot. Visual distortion fields that make our ships appear in multiple places at once. Communication jammers that don't block signals, they scramble them into nonsense. Delivery systems for information packages that will overload their data processors. None of it is a traditional weapon. All of it is designed to make them question what they're seeing and hearing. Lisa was nodding enthusiastically. That could actually work. The Krillian military operates on strict protocols. Every situation has a programmed response. But if we present them with situations they've never encountered, situations that don't make sense according to their understanding of warfare, their protocols will fail. It's risky, Karen said. We're betting everything on the idea that we can out-weird an alien empire. We're already weird, Pete said. We might as well use it. Jake turned away from the window and looked at his team. Here's what I'm thinking. We don't surrender. We don't launch a conventional military strike. Instead, we respond in a way that's so completely human that they can't process it. Give me details, Karen said. I need to know what I'm approving. For the next 3 hours they planned, Ben would have his experimental division ready to deploy their confusion weapons. Pete would coordinate special operations teams that would approach the Krillian ship with actions designed to puzzle rather than threaten. Amy would oversee communication warfare, using everything from music to cultural broadcasts to flood the Krillian, systems with information they couldn't categorize, but the most controversial part of the plan came from an unexpected source. We need to bring in the hackers, Amy said during a break in the discussion. What hackers? Karen asked. There's a group calling themselves the Chaos Collective, Amy explained. They've been organizing online for the past 24 hours. Thousands of programmers, security experts, and just general troublemakers. They want to help. Absolutely not, Karen said immediately. We can't trust random civilians with this. With respect, ma'am, Amy replied, we don't have a choice. These people have skills our military programmers don't have. They think in ways that break rules. That's exactly what we need right now. Jake considered it. Can you vet them? At least the core group? I already have, Amy said. Their leader is a guy named Danny Brooks. He's 24, lives in Denver, and he's one of the best ethical hackers in the world. He's broken into corporate systems just to show them their security flaws, then helped them fix it. Never kept any data, never asked for payment. Ethical hackers, Pete said with a laugh. I like him already. Set up a secure meeting, Jake decided. If this Danny can help, we'll take his help. We need every advantage we can get. By the 48-hour mark, the plan was taking shape. Jake sent a message to all Earth's military forces, explaining the strategy. Some commanders thought he was crazy. Others agreed immediately. A few refused to participate and insisted on preparing for conventional warfare. Jake let them. If his plan failed, Earth would need those conventional forces as a last resort. Danny Brooks arrived at Lunar Command with a team of 5 other hackers. They looked exactly like Jake expected, young, tired, wearing clothes that hadn't been changed in days, and carrying enough computer equipment to outfit a small tech company. So, Danny said as he shook Jake's hand, you want us to break into an alien spaceship's computer systems and upload Earth's internet directly into their database? That's part of it, Jake confirmed. Danny's grin was huge. This is literally the coolest thing I will ever do in my entire life. You understand the risk? Karen asked. If this doesn't work, we're all dead. If we don't try, Danny replied, we're all slaves or we're all dead anyway. At least this way we go out doing something interesting. Lisa was fascinated by the young hacker. What made you volunteer for this? Danny shrugged. I saw that alien commander's face on the screen, all serious and threatening. And I thought, this guy has never seen a cat video. He doesn't know what a meme is. He's never heard music that makes you want to move. His entire species is missing out on everything that makes existence fun. That's sad, you know? So maybe we show him what he's missing. Maybe we introduce the Krillian Empire to humanity's greatest hits. Maybe they'll be too confused to want to conquer us. That's the strangest reason to fight an alien invasion I've ever heard, Pete said. Hey, I contain multitudes, Danny replied. Also, if we win, I'm going to be the most famous hacker in history. Can't pass that up. As the deadline approached, Jake stood in the command center watching Earth on the screens. Cities were lit up across the night side of the planet. Millions of people going about their lives not knowing if they would see another sunrise. Some were praying. Some were rioting. Some were still posting jokes online about the alien invaders, sir, Amy said quietly. 12 hours until the deadline. Are we really doing this? Jake nodded. We're really doing this. What if it doesn't work? Then we tried something new, Jake replied. We refused to play their game by their rules. That's got to count for something. Ben walked up to join them. My teams are ready. Pete's operations are in position. Danny's hackers are set up. We can launch everything the moment that deadline hits. Good, Jake said. Let's show the Krillian Empire what happens when they threaten humanity. The 72-hour deadline passed at exactly 1400 hours, Earth Standard Time. Jake Morrison watched the clock count down to 0 in the Lunar Command Center. Around him, every station was occupied. Every screen showed a different view of Earth's orbital space where the Krillian dreadnought waited like a dark omen. Nothing happened for 5 minutes. Then 10. The tension in the room grew thick enough to cut with a knife. They're moving, Amy Rodriguez announced suddenly. Her fingers flew across her console. The Krillian ship is changing position. Weapon ports opening. They're preparing to fire on a target. Which city? Secretary Karen Wells demanded. She'd stayed at Lunar Command for the final hours, wanting to see this through personally. Calculating trajectory now, Amy said. Her face went pale. Tokyo. They're targeting Tokyo. 37 million people lived in the Tokyo metropolitan area. In less than a minute, the Krillians were planning to erase them from existence as a demonstration of power. Execute the plan, Jake said calmly. All teams go now. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations, assuming humanity survived to have military historians. Captain Ben Harris's experimental division launched first. Modified satellites that had been placed in orbit over the past 2 days activated simultaneously. They didn't fire weapons. Instead, they broadcast specific frequencies that Dr. Lisa Chang had identified as potentially disruptive to Krillian neural implants. On the bridge of the Krillian dreadnought, Commander Zekthor suddenly felt a sharp pain behind his eyes. Around him, his crew members stumbled or grabbed their heads. The targeting solution for Tokyo flickered and disappeared from their displays. "What is this?" Zekthor demanded, his voice showing confusion for the first time in decades. Before anyone could answer, Earth's ships began to move. Commander Pete Jackson led a squadron of 12 modified vessels. They weren't military ships originally. They were mining craft, cargo haulers, even a luxury yacht that someone had volunteered for the cause. But Ben's teams had worked on them, painting them in colors that seemed to shift and change. They moved in patterns that made no tactical sense, zigzagging and spiraling through space in ways that no military formation would ever use. "Deploy the disco balls," Pete said into his communication system. He was grinning despite the danger. Maybe because of it. Small spheres ejected from his ships, each one covered in reflective panels. When Earth's satellites hit them with lasers, they scattered light in every direction. To the Krillian sensors, it looked like hundreds of new targets had suddenly appeared. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple human vessels," a Krillian tactical officer reported. "No, wait. Sensors show thousands, but that's impossible. They don't have that many ships." Zekthor's headache was getting worse. "Focus all sensors. Find the real targets." But the frequency disruption was making it hard for the Krillians to coordinate. Their neural implants kept trying to connect them to each other, but the signals were scrambled. Some crew members were receiving their own thoughts back as if someone else was sending them. Others were hearing strange sounds that had no source. Then the music started. Amy Rodriguez had spent the past day compiling humanity's loudest, most aggressive music. Heavy metal, hardcore punk, industrial noise. She'd worked with audio engineers to modify it, specifically to be as disorienting as possible to species with hearing ranges, different from humans. Now that music blasted, across every communication frequency the Krillians were using. "Turn it off," Zekthor shouted, but his communications officer was clutching his head in pain. "I can't, sir. It's on every channel. Our systems are trying to filter it, but there's too much." Danny Brooks and his team of hackers were working from a secure location on Earth. They'd spent the past 2 days studying every bit of communication that came from the Krillian ship, learning its protocols and security systems. The Krillians had good security, but it was designed to stop military-grade cyber attacks. It wasn't designed to stop a bunch of creative humans who approached computer systems like puzzles to be solved, rather than fortresses to be breached. "We're in," Danny announced. "Their firewall thinks we're a maintenance routine. Uploading the package now." The package was 10 terabytes of data, a curated collection of human culture, history, entertainment, and general chaos. Everything from classic literature to viral videos, scientific papers next to cooking shows, philosophy texts mixed with comedy sketches, and yes, thousands of cat videos. The Krillian computer systems, designed for military efficiency and clear categorization, tried to process this incoming flood of information. They tried to sort it, analyze it, determine if it was a threat. But how do you categorize a cat video? What threat level is a cooking show? How do you militarily respond to a joke? The system started to slow down as they devoted more processing power to understanding what they were receiving. "Sir," the Krillian technical officer reported, "our systems are being flooded with data from the human vessels. It's not malware, it's just information. But there's so much of it and it's so disorganized that our processors can't keep up." Zekthor tried to think through the pain in his head and the horrible noise on the communication channels. "Ignore it. Target their ships. Destroy them, but which ships?" The sensors showed thousands of targets now. Visual confirmation showed 12 human vessels dancing through space in patterns that seemed random. The targeting AI kept trying to predict where they would go next and kept being wrong. Jake watched from Lunar Command as the plan unfolded. "Status report. Krillian weapon system still active, but they haven't fired," Amy said. "Their ship is moving, but they're not pursuing our vessels. They're just rotating in place like they can't decide what to do. Their communication traffic has increased by 300%, Lisa added, monitoring the alien signals. "They're confused. They keep sending requests for instructions, but their command structure seems to be overwhelmed." Ben checked his systems. The frequency disruptors are working better than expected. Their neural implants are designed for efficient military communication. But that means they're vulnerable to specific interference patterns. They're probably experiencing something like a group migraine right now. "Is that ethical?" Karen asked quietly. Is threatening to destroy Tokyo ethical? Pete replied from his ship. He was performing a barrel roll that accomplished nothing except looking cool. We're not killing them. We're just giving them a headache and a lot to think about. More human ships joined the operation. These ones weren't military at all. They were civilian vessels, volunteers who decided to help. They didn't have any weapons, experimental or otherwise. What they did have was creativity. One ship was broadcasting the entire history of human television on a loop. Another was transmitting recipes. A cargo hauler was playing sports commentary from games the Krillians had never seen. None of it was coordinated. None of it made sense from a military perspective. That was the point. The Krillian Empire had conquered 73 star systems by understanding their enemies. Fear made species predictable. Desperation made them easy to manipulate. Military resistance followed patterns that could be analyzed and defeated. But what pattern was this? On the Krillian flagship, Zekthor finally managed to clear his head enough to think. He pulled up the communication logs and saw what was happening. The humans weren't attacking. They were confusing. They were broadcasting chaos. Stop trying to process the incoming data, he ordered. Shut down all external data reception. Focus only on our own systems. Sir, if we do that, we'll be blind to human communications, his technical officer warned. We're already blind, Zekthor said bitterly. They're not communicating military plans. They're drowning us in noise. The Krillian systems shut down their external data intake. Immediately, the pressure on their computers eased. The processing slowdown stopped, but the frequency disruptors were still active. The music was still playing, and the human ships were still dancing through space in their incomprehensible patterns. Jake saw the change in the Krillian ship's behavior. They've adapted, closed their systems to external data. Do we have a backup plan for this? Karen asked. Jake smiled. We let them sit in the silence and think about what just happened. For the first time in Krillian military history, Commander Zekthor didn't know what to do. The humans hadn't fought like enemies. They hadn't surrendered like victims. They'd done something completely outside his experience or training. They'd been weird. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, we haven't taken any casualties. Our ship is undamaged. But we haven't accomplished our objective either. We were supposed to destroy one of their cities to demonstrate our power. Zekthor looked at the screens showing the human vessels still moving in their strange patterns. Some were now just floating in space, apparently doing nothing. Others seemed to be flying in circles for no tactical reason. What kind of species is this? He asked no one in particular. On Earth, in millions of homes, people were watching the news coverage of the orbital battle. They saw the Krillian ship that hadn't fired its weapons. They saw humanity's defenders making the alien invaders look confused and lost, and they started to laugh. Not from fear this time, from genuine amusement at the absurdity of it all. Humanity was defending itself with. Commander Zekthor stood alone in his private quarters aboard the Krillian dreadnought, staring at the wall and trying to understand what had gone wrong. Behind him, through the armored viewport, Earth hung in space looking peaceful and beautiful. Nothing about that planet suggested the chaos it had unleashed. 73 star systems. 1,000 years of perfect conquest. Every species they'd encountered had responded predictably. Fear, surrender, or futile military resistance. The Krillian Empire had protocols for everything. They had no protocol for disco balls and cat videos. His door chimed. Enter, he said without turning. His second-in-command, Cryan, walked in. She was younger than most officers at her rank, promoted quickly because of her analytical mind. Right now that mind was clearly struggling with the situation. Sir, I've completed my analysis of the human response, she said, holding a data tablet. You're not going to like it. I already don't like it, Zekthor replied. Tell me anyway. Cryan pulled up displays showing the past 6 hours of engagement with Earth. The humans haven't damaged our ship. They haven't fired a single weapon that could actually hurt us. Their vessels are converted civilian craft with no real military capability. Then why haven't we destroyed them? Zekthor asked, his voice heavy with frustration. Because we can't target them effectively, Cryan explained. Our sensors are being overwhelmed by false readings. Our neural implants are being disrupted by specific frequencies. Our computer systems were flooded with data that wasn't a threat but consumed processing power, trying to categorize it. And most importantly, our tactical AI keeps failing to predict their movements. She brought up a video showing the human ships moving through space. Look at this. No formation. No tactical purpose. One vessel is literally flying in circles. Another is broadcasting recipes for something called pizza. Our AI is trained on 1,000 years of military engagements across 73 star systems. It has never seen anything like this because this isn't military behavior. It's chaos. Zekthor turned to face her. Every species can be predicted. Fear makes them predictable. The humans are afraid, Creon said. Our intelligence shows panic in their cities, fear in their communications. But they're not letting that fear control their actions. Somehow they're channeling it into creativity instead of paralysis. That's not possible, Zekthor stated. Yet they're doing it, Cryon replied. She hesitated, then continued. Sir, I need to show you something else. Before we closed our external data intake, our systems received a massive information package from the humans. I've been reviewing it. Why would you waste time on their propaganda? Because it's not propaganda, Creon said. It's their culture. History, art, entertainment, science, philosophy. Everything that makes them who they are. And sir, it explains everything we're seeing. She pulled up images and videos on the display. These creatures have survived multiple extinction events on their planet. They've fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They've created beauty and horror in equal measure. And through all of it, they've maintained something we don't have. What? Zekthor demanded. Unpredictability, Creon said simply. Look at their entertainment. They tell stories where the weak defeat the strong through cleverness. They celebrate individuals who break rules and think differently. Their entire culture rewards chaos and creativity. She showed him a clip of a human comedy show, then a documentary about their space program, then a music video that made no logical sense but was clearly popular. We can't predict them because they don't follow patterns. Each human seems to have different thoughts, different approaches. They don't have unified implants like us. They argue with each other constantly, but that disconnection makes them flexible in ways we aren't. Zekthor watched the images scroll past. Humans laughing, humans crying, humans doing things that served no obvious purpose except that they wanted to do them. It was alien in ways he hadn't expected. Sir, Creon said quietly, I don't think we can conquer these people, not with our current approach. The Emperor will demand answers, Zekthor said. We cannot return having failed. Then perhaps we need to communicate with them differently, Creon suggested, not as conquerors to victims, but as one species to another. Back at Lunar Command, Jake Morrison was dealing with his own problems. World leaders were calling constantly, demanding explanations for why he'd risked everything on such an unusual strategy. Military commanders were asking when they could launch conventional weapons, and the media was having a field day with footage of human ships making the Krillian dreadnought look confused. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Krillian vessel, Amy Rodriguez announced. But it's different from before. It's not on all frequencies. It's a direct communication request to you specifically. Jake raised his eyebrows. Put it through. The screen showed Commander Zekthor, but he looked different. Less certain, almost uncomfortable. Admiral Morrison, I am told that is your rank and name. It is, Jake confirmed. Are you ready to discuss terms of your surrender? He said it lightly, almost joking, but Zekthor's expression showed he didn't understand humor. The Krillian Empire does not surrender. We have never surrendered. Then why are you calling me? Jake asked. Zekthor seemed to struggle with the words. Your response to our ultimatum was not what we expected. Our protocols have no category for what you did. I need to understand your strategy so I can formulate an appropriate response. That's your problem right there, Captain Ben Harris said, stepping into view of the camera. You're looking for a strategy. We don't have one unified strategy. We have hundreds of teams doing different things, most of them making it up as they go along. That's inefficient, Zekthor said. It's human, Ben replied with a shrug. Dr. Lisa Chang joined them on screen. Commander, may I ask you something? In your 1,000 years of conquest, have you ever actually spoken with a species before attacking them? We gave them the choice to surrender, Zekthor said. That's not a conversation, Lisa replied. That's a threat. Did you ever ask them about their culture? Their values? What they wanted? Zekthor was silent for a moment. Such things are irrelevant to the expansion of the Empire. Are they? Lisa asked. Because your empire is built on force and fear. Our whole response to you was built on showing that we don't fit your model of how species should behave. Maybe the problem isn't us. Maybe the problem is that your model is incomplete. On the Krillian ship, Creon was listening to this conversation with fascination. These humans were not only refusing to be intimidated, they were questioning the entire foundation of Krillian philosophy. "Sir," Amy said quietly to Jake, "we're detecting movement in the Krillian fleet. More ships are arriving." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "How many?" "5 more dreadnoughts," Amy replied. "They're taking positions around Earth." The screen showing Zekthor flickered and his image was replaced by another Krillian. This one was older, with scars across the gray skin and eyes that held no warmth at all. "I am Emperor Krellix of the Krillian Empire," the alien said. "Commander Zekthor has reported his failure to subjugate your species within the allotted time. I have come to rectify this failure personally." "Your Majesty," Jake said calmly, though he felt anything but calm. "With respect, sending more ships won't change the fundamental problem you're facing." "You think your tricks will work on 6 dreadnoughts?" the Emperor asked. "You think we cannot adjust to your chaos?" "I think you don't understand what you're dealing with," Jake replied. "We're not trying to defeat you militarily. We're trying to show you that we're not worth conquering." "Everything is worth conquering," Krellix stated. "Even a species that will make your existence infinitely more complicated?" Ben asked. "We've been fighting each other on our planet for thousands of years. We've developed skills at guerrilla warfare, psychological operations, and general troublemaking that you can't imagine. You might conquer our cities, but you'll never control our people. We'll resist in ways that break your protocols. We'll be the most difficult, frustrating, unpredictable subjects your empire has ever had." "Or," Jake added, "you could leave us alone and save yourself the headache." Emperor Krellix stared at them through the screen. "You think you can negotiate from a position of weakness?" "We don't think we're weak," Jake said. "We think we're different, and we're offering you a choice. Continue trying to conquer us and discover just how exhausting we can be, or recognize that maybe the galaxy is big enough for different kinds of civilizations." The transmission cut off abruptly. "Well," Commander Pete Jackson said from his ship, "that went either really well or really badly." "Hard to tell which." Secretary Karen Wells looked at Jake. "Do you actually think he'll leave?" "No," Jake admitted. "But I think we've planted a seed of doubt, and doubt is something the Krillian Empire has never had to deal with before." Danny Brooks and his hacker team had been listening to everything. Now Danny spoke up. "Admiral, we still have access to their systems. If they're bringing more ships, we could upload more chaos. Really give them something to process." "Do it," Jake said. "But Danny, make it the good stuff. Show them the best of humanity, not just the weird parts." "You got it," Danny replied, fingers already flying across his keyboard. 6 months had passed since the Krillian Empire's 6 dreadnoughts had surrounded Earth. 6 months since Emperor Krellix had decided that conquering humanity would cost more than it was worth. 6 months since the galaxy learned that humans were unlike any species that had come before. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the diplomatic transport that was carrying him toward the Galactic Council headquarters. It was a massive station that orbited a neutron star in neutral space, built by a coalition of species who had formed a loose alliance for mutual protection, mostly protection from the Krillians. Now that same council had invited Earth to join them as a full member. "This feels weird," Captain Ben Harris said. He was part of Earth's diplomatic delegation, along with Dr. Lisa Chang, Secretary Karen Wells, and surprisingly Danny Brooks. The young hacker had become something of a celebrity after his role in Earth's defense became public knowledge. "Which part feels weird?" Lisa asked. "The fact that we're going to meet dozens of alien species, or the fact that we're apparently famous across this part of the galaxy?" "Both," Ben replied. "I'm a military engineer. I build things that confuse people. I'm not a diplomat." "None of us are traditional diplomats," Karen said. She was reviewing data on the species they would meet. That might be an advantage. "Traditional diplomacy hasn't worked very well for this part of the galaxy, considering the Krillians conquered most of it." "Speaking of which," Amy Rodriguez said from the pilot station, "we're about to dock. And according to sensors, there's a Krillian vessel in the diplomatic bay." That made everyone pause. Jake felt his hand unconsciously move toward where a weapon would be if he was carrying one. He wasn't. This was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. "It's probably fine," Danny said, not sounding convinced. "I mean, they invited us here." They wouldn't let the Krillians start something at the council headquarters. Right? Let's hope so, Jake said. The diplomatic station was enormous. It had been built over centuries by a dozen different species, and you could see the different architectural styles blending together. Some sections looked organic, grown rather than built. Others were precise geometric shapes. A few areas seemed to defy physics with structures that shouldn't be able to stand but did anyway. They were met at the docking bay by an alien Jake recognized from the briefing materials. It was an Eldari, a species known for their diplomatic skills. The creature was tall and thin with blue skin and forearms. Two were folded in what Jake had learned was a gesture of peaceful greeting. "Welcome, Admiral Morrison and delegation of Earth," the Eldari said. Its voice was musical, coming from a translation device rather than directly from its mouth. "I am Ambassador Kelthar. The Council is eager to meet you. Your species has become quite famous for being weird?" Ben asked. Kelthar made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "For being effective. The Krillian Empire has not retreated from a conquest target in 700 years. Your achievement is remarkable." "We didn't exactly defeat them," Jake said as they walked through the station's corridors. Other aliens stopped to stare at the human delegation. Some seemed curious. A few looked afraid. "We just made ourselves too annoying to conquer." "A distinction without much difference," Kelthar replied. "The result is the same. Earth remains independent." They entered a massive chamber that reminded Jake of an amphitheater. Seats arranged in circular tiers descended toward a central floor where delegates could speak. Hundreds of aliens filled those seats representing dozens of species. The variety was staggering. Some looked almost humanoid. Others were so alien that Jake couldn't immediately tell which end was the head. And sitting in one section, wearing diplomatic robes that looked strange on their military frames, were the Krillians. Jake spotted Commander Zekthor immediately. The Krillian commander was easy to recognize. But next to him sat the younger officer Jake remembered from the video transmissions. Krian. She was watching the human delegation with what seemed like intense interest. "They let them join the council?" Danny whispered. "The Krillian Empire requested observer status 3 months ago," Kelthar explained. "It was unexpected. They have never shown interest in diplomatic channels before." "Things change," a voice said from behind them. Jake turned to see Krian approaching. She was alone, having left Zekthor in the Krillian section. Up close, she was less intimidating than Jake expected. There was curiosity in her expression rather than the cold military efficiency he associated with Krillians. "Officer Krian," Jake said carefully, "I didn't expect to see you here." "I am now Ambassador Krian," she replied. "After our encounter with Earth, Emperor Krellix decided the Empire needed a new approach to dealing with species like yours. I volunteered to study your culture and represent the Empire in diplomatic situations." "Why?" Lisa asked, her scientific curiosity clearly winning over her caution. "Because you showed me something I had never considered," Krian said. "The data package your Mr. Brooks uploaded to our systems. I spent weeks studying it. Human history, art, music, stories. I became fascinated by how your species thinks. You value individual creativity over collective efficiency. You celebrate chaos and unpredictability. It goes against everything I was taught, but I cannot deny that it works." Danny was grinning. "You liked our cat videos, didn't you?" Krian's expression didn't change, but there was something in her eyes. "I found them inexplicably engaging. I have watched many of them. I still do not understand why they are popular, but I have accepted that understanding is not required for appreciation." Before anyone could respond, a deep sound echoed through the chamber. The council was being called to order. Ambassador Kelthar guided the human delegation to seats in a place of honor. Jake noticed they were positioned where everyone could see them clearly. This was theater as much as diplomacy. A figure appeared in the center of the chamber. It was a hologram, representing the council's speaker. The being looked ancient, with features that reminded Jake of both reptiles and birds somehow combined. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," the speaker began, "we gathered today to formally welcome a new species to our coalition. The humans of Earth have demonstrated qualities that we value: courage, creativity, and the strength to resist tyranny. Admiral Morrison, please step forward." Jake descended to the chamber floor, very aware that hundreds of alien eyes were watching him. He'd prepared a speech, worked on it with the best writers Earth had available. But standing here, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy, the prepared words felt wrong. So he spoke from his heart instead. "Thank you for inviting us here," Jake began. "6 months ago, my species faced the possibility of extinction or slavery. The Krillian Empire gave us an ultimatum, and we responded in the only way we knew how. We didn't follow the rules they expected. We didn't play the game the way it had always been played, and somehow that worked." He turned slowly, looking at the assembled aliens. "But I want to be clear about something. We didn't do this alone. Everything we know about the Krillians came from data your species shared. The technology we used was built on scientific principles that many of you discovered first. We succeeded because we stood on the shoulders of every species that resisted before us. The difference," a voice called out, "is that you survived where we did not." Jake looked toward the speaker. It was a small alien with gray fur and large eyes. According to his briefing materials, it was a Ven, a species that had been conquered by the Krillians 40 years ago. "We survived because we were lucky," Jake said honestly, "and because we were willing to try something crazy. But luck runs out. Crazy only works for so long. If we're going to build a galaxy where species can live free, we need to work together. We need to share our knowledge, our strategies, our strengths." "You speak of an alliance," the council speaker said. "Are humans prepared to commit to mutual defense with the council species?" Jake thought about that. It was a big commitment. Earth was still recovering from the near invasion. They weren't ready for another major conflict, but they also couldn't stand alone. "We are," Jake said, "with the understanding that we're still learning how to be part of the galactic community. We'll make mistakes. We'll probably confuse you sometimes, but we'll show up when you need us, just like we hope you'll show up for us." The council speaker seemed satisfied with that answer. "Then let it be recorded. Earth is welcomed as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." The chamber filled with sounds. Jake's translator was overwhelmed, trying to convert dozens of species' approval into something he could understand. It came through as a jumbled mess of words, but the meaning was clear. They were accepted. Later, after the formal ceremony ended, Jake found himself at a reception area where delegates mingled. It was awkward, trying to figure out how to be social with beings who didn't share human biology or culture. But people were trying. Ben was explaining to a fascinated group of aliens how the frequency disruptors worked. Lisa was deep in conversation with several xenobiologists, comparing notes on different species' evolution. Karen was networking with other defense officials, already building relationships that Earth would need. And Danny was showing a group of young aliens from various species how to make memes.